911 emergency, what are you reporting?
Baby, it's cold outside. I gotta go away. Baby, it's cold outside.
You're listening to another great episode of We Speak Dispatch.
Welcome back, everybody, to another great episode of We Speak Dispatch, because if we are speaking dispatch, hopefully that is starting a conversation where you are. And today we've got a number of things we're going to be talking about, weather related. But first, let us go around the horn and say hi to our regular cast of characters. Jill, how's it going where you are?
Good. It's good. I'm in the wine cellar, as you can see. And
Lovely.
For 2025, I've decided I want to perfect making bread. So I have made pretzels today, which are very delicious. So I'm super excited.
That is awesome. What about you, John? How's things where you are?
Things are going well, and since I saw Jill's pretzel picture, I'm just going to put my super pretzel in a toaster oven and eat that.
Ooh, that sounds yummy. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
Doug,
frozen.
what about you?
Well, I didn't cook anything, but I am looking outside as it's snowing, and it looks pretty darn nice out there. So
Craziness.
Little cold, but we're going to talk about that today. So
That's right. So yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about weather and weather related issues, natural disasters and things like that. Obviously, if you are listening to this as it's being released right now, it is mid-January 2025. And so the big news that's been probably on everybody's TV for the past couple weeks is the big fires in Los Angeles County down in Southern California. And as some of you may know, Doug and I hail from California, but we always joke that in California, there's only two seasons. There's award season and there's fire season, because there's no really weather to speak of. So obviously our thoughts are going out to everybody who's been impacted by those fires. And unfortunately, it is fairly common on that side of the country where not a lot of rain and it gets super, super dry, and it doesn't take much to spark those fires. So
both know that
huge deal.
in California, when they have a fire, what comes next?
The mudslides.
It's like it's a cycle that happens every year. We have this going on. It's just crazy. So
Yeah. It really is. And, a lot of the things that happen, talking about weather and these type of disasters in California, some of those things, there's nothing you can really do about it. The fires this time were exacerbated because of 100-mile-an-hour Santa Ana winds. And, there's not a whole lot you can do to avoid that, other than maybe some preparation and things like that. And then the other big issue that comes into California is earthquakes. So Doug, can you count how many earthquakes you've been in over the course of your lifetime?
A lot, and some really big ones. The Northridge earthquake, which collapsed the freeway and all that stuff.
Yep.
I was working in LA at the time, and we had to jump onto 12-hour shifts, days off canceled. It was a crazy time to be working, because you think the traffic's bad in LA with good freeways. Try collapsing a freeway and trying to have traffic. It was out of control. It was just so difficult to get into work and then get out again. It's like, it was a bit crazy. So I was glad to have that experience.
Yeah. How would you, for those of you who may not have ever experienced an earthquake, Doug, how do you describe an earthquake to someone who's never been in an earthquake?
It's funny, because a lot of people say, oh, I would never want to be in an earthquake. Well, I don't ever want to be in a tornado again or any of that other stuff. It's like earthquakes are sort of like surprise. So you're just sitting there and all of a sudden it's like you feel this like wave kind of thing come on. It looks like the floor almost gets up and moves, but it's like, it's just a weird feeling to feel it go down. And there's going to be aftershocks.
Right.
So when you have the big one, you got to wait, because there's going to be aftershocks. You got to fill on that stuff. So, and I know that every place I've worked for the Highway Patrol, we had a policy that if there was a major natural disaster, like an earthquake or something like that, you had to call in, because we're concerned about you, number one, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And then number two, we wanted you to call in because you may be told days off are canceled. Here's what's going on. So,
right.
But if earthquakes happen, you're on graves, and earthquakes happen during the day, I may not even feel it sleeping, or it may actually put me into REM sleep and say, "Oh, that felt good."
Yeah, that was awesome.
It's kind of like when 9/11 happened. When 9/11 happened on the West Coast, it was early. I was still sleeping. I got a
Mhm.
phone call from my lieutenant saying, turn on the TV and get in here. And I'm like, oh my God. So yes, I was asleep at the time when it happened, but I still had to respond into work. Same thing with earthquakes. Somebody's going to wake you up and go, hey, y'all, a big earthquake just happened. We've got
Yeah.
major damage and things have happened and all that kind of stuff. And you still got to worry about your own stuff.
Sure.
I mean, it's when you're at work, that's got to really be on your brain going, God, I hope my house is okay. Just like these
Right.
fires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These fires are insane out there.
Right. Well, you bring up a good point, and I know John and Jill, you both have come from PSAPs or ECCs, but Doug talks about, you had a policy, and curious if John or Jill or both of you in the situations where you were working pretty much on the East Coast, did you have a policy in place that required you to, in the event of some major event or a major incident, did you have a policy that dictated how you would respond if you weren't sitting in the center? John, I'll go to you first.
No, there was no policy. Well, in
Mm-hmm.
fact, we did experience one earthquake in the Washington, D.C. area during my tenure. I don't
Wow.
even think I knew it. Well, we felt it. Yeah. Because I remember I was standing on the second floor of our two-story building, and it was like, what was that? Well, okay
Yeah.
then. We believe that was an earthquake. All right. I don't even remember
Yeah.
the aftershocks. I do remember now standing and luckily I was already in the doorway. Doesn't that tell you where to go?
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you're
like
supposed to go in the
perfect.
doorway.
It was like I was being watched
Hmm.
over. So but no, there is no policy like super inclement weather, which to your point, Doug, squads usually plan for and remind people like leave
Mm-hmm.
early, get your go bag, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no policy that said like call in, verify your welfare, and then respond. And it was, hey, this is your shift. You're expected to be here if you're not off.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What about you, Jill? Was there a policy where you
I don't ever remember a policy like that. And the earthquake John remembers is probably the one I remember from like August or September of 2011
Probably something like that.
at home. And my cat started acting a little cuckoo. Now she was like an older cat and she slept most of the time. So she was starting to act cuckoo. I'm like, what is going on with her? And then all of a sudden you just felt everything shake.
Mhm.
And I had just moved into my apartment. I had all these pictures on the walls and they're all crooked and the cat's acting goofy. And I'm like, what in the world? And that's like the first significant earthquake that I remember. We'd had little ones, but that was the first one where I was like, there's nothing like I'm in a third floor of an apartment building and I'm feeling this thing shake going and like, what's going to happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I ran outside and I saw the maintenance guys. I'm like, what the hell was that? And they're like, that was an earthquake. So then they had to go around and assess all the buildings. I'm like, well, can you do mine first since I'm home?
Yeah. I'm going back in there.
Yeah. But
I remember
Well,
being at the center when it did happen, Leslie. It's the squad. I wasn't the squad manager at the time, but I was certainly there. We didn't go and say, okay, let's notify everybody who's not here and check their welfare. It was
Right.
let's just make sure the people here are good, get the phones answered, get the calls dispatched, and keep it moving.
Mhm.
yeah,
It's because we had so many people that worked every shift. I mean, LA had 50 on swings that we had to start calling people to tell them like either you're going to hit nothing but traffic today because of something big happened, or maybe the area you live in's been hit with this thing and you won't be coming in. So that's kind of what the antithesis was of that policy.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if you were obviously on a cruise ship, you're not going to call in. Or if you're down in San Diego and we're in LA, okay, never mind. But if you're within range, you need to call us because we need to make sure you're okay. And then we may have to tell you to come in. So,
Well, and I remember we had a policy because in California at the time, we were considered emergency response workers. So even if we were able to make contact with our employer, and we weren't able to go in, say, I lived on the opposite side of where those freeways collapsed and I wasn't able to get to my regular center, that there was an expectation that I would report to the nearest 911 center.
Wow.
And then step in and be a part of their workload, because recognizing that, if something that critical had happened, that everybody is going to need to be 100% on board, ready to go. So, that was
that too, because we had so many comm centers. If you couldn't make it to your comm center, but you could make it to an area office where the officers are,
right.
Go over there and check in with them. And maybe they got something for you to do over there.
But you were on the same system. It sounds like, Leslie, you could go into another comm center and like, okay, this is the system. Okay, just tell me the event screen. Good. Let me answer the calls. Go.
Or start doing, manual cards, because everybody
Here, enter this.
Yeah, everybody used, the same penal codes, vehicle codes, all that stuff. So I probably couldn't work the radio, but I could certainly answer phones.
Our biggest thing was when I worked in San Bernardino, because we had the mountains we dispatched for, which snow and all that stuff goes on up there. We had a lot of people lived up in the mountains that once it started snowing so heavy, with like a feet of snow, they can't get out.
Yeah.
They cannot make it around. And, I remember telling somebody like, okay, you got to take the 18 to the 14 to the 5 to the, take you 9 hours to get in there. Like, just forget it. You live in the mountains, just forget it. If you can make it to the area office, go. But if you can't, there's nothing we can do. I mean, there's really nothing we can do. You can't take a sled in. So
no.
And we did have one of those, whatever those snowmobile looking things are. We had one of those, half tracks or whatever they are. But, once you're up in those kind of areas, I mean, it's hard to number one, dispatch units that they can barely get over there because they're driving.
Snowmobile 5, are you available? Snowmobile 5.
Well, at that time we had Crown Vics, and Crown Vics aren't very good in the snow. So it's like,
they're not very good on hard surfaces either, but anyway, but that brings up a good point okay, so we've talked about earthquakes and, those really just come out of nowhere, but, in situations where most weather, tornadoes, hurricanes, blizzards, ice storms, all of those things, they don't just miraculously appear. You get some level of warning. So, John and Jill, coming from the East Coast, you probably had a lot more experience with those types of events where, the meteorologists were saying, buckle in, it's about to get bumpy. So, how do you plan for that personally and when it comes to your work life?
I have learned to just wait for weather to happen. You kind of want to be prepared, but
for the window. It's rough.
Basically, there's so many times that you over prepare, and then when it really counts, you're not prepared. So I've just kind of learned to just let it happen, and you have it in the back of your mind. We were getting snow here last week, and it was coming Sunday night into Monday morning, and they weren't sure if or Thursday to Friday. I forget how it went. Whatever. So by 6 o'clock in the morning, my full-time job was going to make a decision whether we're going to work or not. Well, at 6 o'clock in the morning, nothing was happening. Well, I leave for work at 7:30. By 7:30, the roads were coated. So then I'm going in a little bit more prepared. I've got the boots, I've got the gloves, I've got the scarf. And as I'm literally, I hug and kiss Doug goodbye. I put my hand on the garage to open the door, and I get the text, we're closed. It's just so hard to prepare. I could have gone into work and there'd been nothing, and then come home and there'd be nothing. So I've just learned to wait for it to happen. But
I think something's ready in the oven.
More pretzels.
Okay.
Where's this coming from?
Yeah. What about you, John? Did you have anything specific for work that you would have to do?
Yeah, for things like that, we would do a lot of shift briefings or roll calls, just reminding folks. I mean, it's publicized, but not everybody watches the news. We do a lot of people who disconnect when they're off work and they do completely different things. So sometimes us sharing it in a shift briefing was their awareness. And it's just a reminder of things like just have your canned foods, just have a plan to get to and from work. We did carpools. We've had officers take people to and from. I mean, those are just luxuries, but ultimately it's your responsibility. If you're supposed to be at work, you got to find a way to get there. And I'm sorry, if that means you got to wake up 3 hours early to get in, you got to wake up 3 hours early to get in as essential personnel. For me, I had a air mattress that was in a bag, right?
Yeah.
And then I put a pillow in my trunk, and I just left it there pretty much all winter. That way I didn't keep taking it in and out of the apartment. And if the called for inclement weather, great. I know what I am. I'm just going to grab sheets, plug that thing in, and off to Ram I go. And we had a big center, as some of us know. Fortunately, we would convert offices to bunk rooms.
Right.
Wow. And we would just take it over. We wouldn't move desks or anything, but we would, and if the lights weren't great, if there was natural light coming in, that's why an eye mask came in handy. So it was just reminding people, plan your personal go bag.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember, and Glenn is not joining us today, but I remember one of the things that she talked about, and I thought, oh, well, this is brilliant, is, you know, if you are uniformed personnel, chances are you're issued some big, very attractive black boots to wear with your uniform pants.
Yeah.
And eventually those things are going to wear out. She said, put the old pair in your trunk. Because if you're out someplace and, you know, say you just ran to the store to get milk because the snow's coming and something happens and you're wearing slippers, well, you got your boots in the back. Or if there's an earthquake and you got to walk across, you know, various and assorted debris that's been, you know, placed in the roadways, you got strong boots in the back. And I thought, oh, that's brilliant. But I'm gonna challenge Doug because I know how much he loves technology and stuff. So all of
We're
us
doing some research, by the way, but go ahead. So
anyway, so all of us on this podcast are older. And so maybe, you know, the majority of our careers were pre-COVID and maybe a little bit in COVID. And post-COVID, I mean, things like what we're doing now, Zoom and Google Meets and Teams and all this other stuff just weren't even around. It wasn't even a thought. And I know now, post-COVID, a lot of agencies have moved to being able to at least call take remotely.
Right.
And so I'm curious, you know, Doug, we're talking about all these weather-related issues that maybe might be a concern, especially getting people into the center. What about utilizing some of that technology to allow people to work from home?
and I know people are doing it. I mean, I know they're actually out there doing this thing, and that makes sense. You know, they're doing these things, but I don't know if you saw the Senate hearings just the other day. They're talking to people that operate Social Security, and they're all doing remote call answering. One of the senators said he was on the phone for an hour and 28 minutes waiting for somebody to answer the phone, and he said, "Where are they? Where are these people that are at home answering calls? They're not." Because they discovered that they were doing lots of other things besides answering calls.
Right.
And now there's a big issue with that going on. So I don't say it's happening in comm centers. I hope it doesn't. But if we have to go to remote answering and stuff like that, as long as there's some sort of controls on it or something like that, that's great. That would be wonderful if you do it from your house.
Well,
I just worry about the interpersonal relations you are missing out on. You're missing out on all of them.
And go ahead, John, what were you going to say?
That to me says there's something wrong with the accountability of management in that regard, or the phone system so antiquated. I'm just thinking in a 911 center, any phone system today, even the one that we had pre-COVID, right? You could always run analytics or reports on it. You could see whether who's picking up calls, how long they've been on calls, what's the duration between disconnect and pickup, how long if you're in an automated call distribution environment, how long have you been in a ready state to get a call, which to me, that's all I can ask for.
Right. Yeah.
So if that's the case, then you lose that privilege of, okay, guess what? You need to buy more than a Crown Vic and get your ass to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
No more remote for you, but
although Crown Vics were nice cars, I'm just saying. But
my point is, it should be easy to find out who's actually handling workload and who's not.
Right. Right.
And I think
those
said that
types
they
of
were
reports
concerned.
are more common.
Well, they were concerned with the fact that there was some of their people that were claiming they were in domestic situations. So they couldn't answer the phones at their house because they were in the middle of a domestic thing. And it's like, oh my God. So now we got to worry about that going on and affecting the way they can answer calls. Maybe they're crying, they're upset, something's happened at their house that we don't know about as management because we're 70 miles away going where I've got other people to worry about. So it's just, there has to be some sort of fix for that. There has to be some sort of thing for that. I mean, I know it's coming. I mean, we all know it's coming. Technology there, it's going to happen. And it's like, you know, and like Leslie wants to have like just robots answering calls. So it's like, it is.
Rosie, are you available? Rosie.
That's right. Yeah.
So the
Rosie doesn't
snow and
care if
everything
there's
won't
snow on
affect
the ground.
anybody. So the snow doesn't affect Terminators. So that's good. So
that's right. Well, so we're pretty much at time, but I would love to throw this out to anybody who's out there to send us a policy that dictates what it is that you have to do if and when you're unable to get to your workplace. And second, you know, are you in an ECC? Are you in a PSAP that allows remote call taking or remote working for emergency type situations? So, Doug, you want to give us the lowdown on all of the platforms we're on and where people can check us
We're
out.
all over the place, but let me also challenge everybody to leave us a comment and say, hey, here's what I have in my Go Pack in the car. I mean, John
yeah.
talked about what he has. I'd sure like to know what everybody's hauling around their car. Do you have room to put stuff in there? Are you doing it? Are you keeping it updated? Stuff like that. So other than that, folks, we're on every podcast platform you could think of. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, if it's still operating, who knows, but it's out there. But I think the last stat showed us approaching 45,000 podcast plays in over 50 some odd countries. So we are all the way out there. If you're not listening to us, I don't know what the hell you're listening to. So you should be listening to this, and you should be telling your friends, hey, I was listening to We Speak Dispatch, and you know what they were talking about? Blah, blah, blah. That'd be great. So until next time, there you go.
See ya. Bye.
We hope you've enjoyed another great episode of We Speak Dispatch. If you would like to be a sponsor, please contact us for details.